on Initiative Africa. My name is Asha Sampath. Welcome to this new edition of your weekly magazine featuring Africa on the move through smart innovations and initiatives that work. Let's get on with the show with our top stories today. A Cameroonian lawyer, human rights activist, mainly defending homosexual rights in a country where their rights are not always respected. Attorney Alice Nkom founded the first association that defends homosexuals and continues to fight against discrimination against people of African descent. She's our guest this week.
Two boys holding hands, and in an instant, the police round you up and take you to court. You're sure to be convicted because in the Penal Code of Cameroon, there's an offence of Article 347A from that time called homosexuality.
Business creators supported by experienced entrepreneurs, the idea is attracting more and more young women who want to set up a business in Guinea.
I can help them to be formalized. I can give them advice, and I'm ready to receive and to coach them, to give them advice so that they succeed, like me.
Learning a man's job is giving huge opportunities to women. In Congo, some women are taking on men's jobs quite successfully.
I have always dreamed of doing a man's job, and this despite people talking, saying that it wasn't good for me. But I remained true to myself. I did what I wanted to do to reach my objective. I believe that when a woman does a man's job, she's more appealing on the labor market.
The mentoring of women entrepreneurs by more experienced peers is a growing concept on the continent. Example in Guinea, where more and more women are embarking on business creation. A female solidarity allowing the most experienced entrepreneurs to accompany the novices. And the support often facilitates the integration of young entrepreneurs. This is a report by Sayon Kourma.
Savoir à quel moment tu dois être dans le foyer.
A meeting of women entrepreneurs is taking place in this courtyard in a suburb of Conakry. Such events of female entrepreneurship are rare. With 20 years' experience in business, Saran Keita of the Amijors Cooperative for Women's Empowerment is explaining the fundamentals of entrepreneurship to these young women. Topics include drawing up a solid business plan, building a good professional network, as well as accessing finance, management, and the legal framework of companies.
We cannot have opportunities with the state and institutions if we are not organized internally. Suppose we don't respect the administrative norms, we have to get ourselves in order, pay taxes, register officially, and be formalized. For those who are not formalized, I told them to come, and I can help them to be formalized. I can give them advice, and I'm ready to receive and to coach them, to give them advice so that they succeed, like me.
The meeting of some 50 women is to create a network of female entrepreneurs and to teach them about the market so they can set up in business for themselves.
Bonjour.
5 months later, we catch up with Aya, who took part in the meeting. The 29-year-old is making a success of her decoration and agri-business, thanks to the guidance she received from her peers.
What time is your appointment tomorrow? 7 a.m. 7? We young people intend to revolutionize development in Guinea, and over 5 years, we project ourselves in the sub-region. We will try to conquer the sub-region with products that are purely made in Guinea, and to say that it is not only multinationals that can come and take our place in Guinea.
With an estimated monthly turnover of more than €700, 10 times the Ghanaian minimum wage, the young manager is making her way thanks to the networks of women entrepreneurs.
Today there's a network that has been formed, and now I tell myself that it is not a one-year job, but it's a process, and I'm going to work harder, not to tell myself that I have achieved excellence, but to tell myself that I have already taken a step forward, and one day I will be proud to tell people that I succeeded because I worked. Because you have to be persistent to succeed today in the entrepreneurial environment in Guinea.
Several women's groups are being set up in the country. They are guided and helped by business angels, experienced mentors and coaches, as in this gathering of more than 500 potential women entrepreneurs meeting to form a new network. At its head, one of the most experienced entrepreneurs in the country, Mariama Satina Sai, CEO of Groupe Mondial Tours. With a career spanning more than 25 years, this former minister has been involved in tourism, football and the agro-industry, and is now leading this women's club, which aims to give wings to young startups.
Women need to have much more courage and believe in themselves. They are afraid, they say to themselves that no, it won't work. If we are together, this women's solidarity will give courage to those who don't have any. So I'm talking about solidarity, and today there are microfinance institutions, there are funds that exist, and there's a whole range of things that can help develop what we do. It's up to us, it's up to the women to organize themselves together, to think together, to push as many women as possible into the field of entrepreneurship.
SADEN, the Ghanaian Entrepreneurs Fair, is also part of this push. Another location in which an emerging economic elite can be trained. Over the past 3 years, it has helped 12,000 entrepreneurs. The objective is to build sustainable and successful businesses. The project's vice president is Salematu Sako. The 31-year-old is one of the key figures in promoting women in Guinea. Her initiative is intended as a framework for endorsing and supporting the development of women entrepreneurs.
SADEN wants to be an instrument that accompanies the creation of companies that can be local champions, national champions, champions of tomorrow. And for this, we must invest in training. We must invest in capacity building. This is what we're trying to do with many partners who support us and accompany us.
Today, it could be said women's entrepreneurship is enjoying a heyday in Guinea. Women are encouraged to take the lead, create their businesses and be autonomous. It is an important trend today, as recent figures indicate that 300,000 female-owned SMEs are registered in the country.
Attorney Alice Nkom is a determined woman who has witnessed the violation of homosexual rights in the hearings of the criminal courts in Cameroon, and as a lawyer she decided to take action. Today, she embraces a new role at the United Nations Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. She shared her hopes with our correspondent in Cameroon, Abubakar Munchili.
Ms. Alice Nkom, good morning. The President of the United Nations Human Rights Council this year appointed you as an expert on the United Nations Permanent Forum of People of African Descent. Can you tell us about this role and how you intend to approach this mission?
I approach this subject with great enthusiasm. For me, I'm honored by the appointment because it allows me to help not only the LGBT community of Cameroon or of Africa where they are suffering, but also all people of African descent. As this is about discrimination, for us, we will bring our expertise and our knowledge to the ways in which we intend to enable the UN to improve its work and programs, providing for the security, the means and the well-being of the people of African descent who suffer enormous discrimination in the world. Remember the case of George Floyd and what is happening today in Ukraine when it comes to evacuating those in danger because of the Russian-Ukrainian war. You know very well what the outcome was for the other refugees, whose skin color was black, and this continues to happen. It is therefore all these things that the United Nations wants to focus on to bring about an improvement, so that we can make recommendations, we can tell them about what needs to be done to improve the unbearable discrimination of people of African descent.
You are known for your defense of LGBT rights. Why did you decide to help the homosexual community?
Ce choix s'est imposé parce que
I came to that decision because I attended criminal court hearings where I saw homosexuality as a criminal offense.
Comme délit l'homosexualité et je voyais de pauvres jeunes gens.
And I saw nearly poor young people arrive at the hearing chained, where they were accused of homosexual acts. These gestures were natural gestures. For example, we see two boys holding hands, and in an instant, the police run you up and take you to court. You're sure to be convicted because in the Penal Code of Cameroon there's an offence of Article 347A from that time called homosexuality.
De l'époque qui s'appelle homosexualité. Et donc on vous arrêtait.
And so you were arrested and you had nobody to defend you. I have never seen a lawyer stand up to defend these people. And that really struck me terribly.
Et par la suite, du fait de certaines rencontres que j'ai faites de jeunes
And
gens,
subsequently, because of certain encounters that I had with young people, I decided that these people who were simply denied rights and citizenship and who have been left behind by the law, by society, by legislators and politicians, someone would have to take care of them, and I thought that it was an unbearable hypocrisy because they were people from a certain background, from modest background, that they were the ones who were going to be penalized by the law. I said, no, I need to do something about this.
les foudres de la loi. J'ai dit non, il faut que je fasse quelque chose.
In 2003, you founded ADEPEHO, the first association for the defence of homosexual rights. Almost 20 years later, what has changed? Are homosexuals still afraid to join an association defending their rights?
Beaucoup de choses ont changé. Bien sûr, c'est pas très facile.
Many things have changed. Of course, the changes aren't that obvious, but imagine that 20 years ago, I was able to put forward and legalize at the prefecture an association that I called on purpose Association for the Defense of Homosexuality. When we know that the prefect has the power by law to refuse to legalize an association that is contrary to good morals, to public order, and that on top of that, this association will defend what is prohibited and penalized and punished as a criminal offense, you understand that it was something important. But I did it on purpose. Why? Precisely because I didn't want to hide. And I wanted to have the opportunity to explain to everyone that this article of the Penal Code, which penalizes homosexuals, is totally illegal. Totally, because the laws of Cameroon are not only the law that is voted by the National Assembly.
Parce que les lois du Cameroun, ce n'est pas seulement la loi qui est votée par l'Assemblée nationale, mais il y a surtout
But there is, above all, international law, international rights according to the principle of the hierarchy of norms, which is a constitutional principle provided for in Article 45 of our Constitution, which requires that the Constitution of Cameroon never violates the general principles that have been established by international law, which is the law of the President of the Republic. Article 43 of the Constitution says that international conventions, international law in general, this is the law that is negotiated, signed by the President of the Republic. Thus, when he takes the oath, it's the prefect who represents the President here, it's him. It's the continuation of this commitment of the President of the Republic that the prefect is responsible for locally. However, we have seen that locally this is not at all the case. So I had to take the opportunity to explain text in hand to Mr. Prefect why he had to defend homosexuals, why he had to legalize this association. And that's what happened. I didn't want to start this fight hiding or adding to the general hypocrisy of people who are gay, but who, because they are well placed, will never be prosecuted. I didn't want that. I said I will deal with gay rights as universal rights, human rights, like all the others.
Universels, les droits de l'homme, comme tous les autres.
Welcome to the second part of our show. In Congo, women are starting to stand up against stereotypes that limit their socio-economic development. This is how in Pointe Noire, a young woman decided to learn to drive cranes, a profession widely perceived as being the prerogative of men. But Grace Rolandi did not take long to shine in her training course, thanks to her confidence and charisma. Our journalist Jean-David Miamley followed her during a practical session. Take a look.
It's hard to go unnoticed amongst all these boys. Grace Rulendi is a remarkable figure of the 20 students at the Raoul F. Training Institute, assigned to a practical session in handling cranes in the industrial zone of Pointe-Noire, the economic capital of Congo. Motivation has visibly taken the upper hand over prejudice. Not shaken by an unfavourable environment, Grace is following her heart.
I have always dreamed of doing a man's job, and this despite people talking saying that it wasn't good for me. But I remained true to myself. I did what I wanted to do to reach my objective. I believe that when a woman does a man's job, she's more appealing on the labour market.
But how does this young lady from the working-class district of Makayabu feel in the midst of all these men? Does she regret her choice?
I like it. I like to do a job where you can actually be remarkable. If I was doing the secretarial work, I personally think people would ignore me. When I do a job like this, I actually gain more value in the eyes of others.
Obviously, Grace Rulendi feels fulfilled in this training as a crane operator. She acknowledges the fact that her family environment and the atmosphere at school help her overcome social prejudices.
Yes, the training is simple. It's good training. It's really good. The people around me didn't expect a girl to do this. And as soon as I arrived, they were all happy. They even appointed me class captain. At home, Mum was very proud of me, because she learned that her daughter chose such a profession. In my neighborhood, I don't really like exhibiting what I really do there.
The Raoul F. Vocational Training Institute has already recorded 12 training sessions of 6 months each since it opened in 2016. 7 women have already been trained, and according to Cristali Bitezo, a classmate, Grace is really exceptional. She's managing to be among the brightest in the class already. Although there are a lot of men who are part of the program, she is not disoriented. In any case, she is learning very well. She is even an example for the majority of girls who try to succeed in our company. Anyway, Grace, she's a role model. At the Raoul F. Vocational Training Institute, the example of Grace Rulendi and also all the other ladies who preceded her in the training is very encouraging and a great way to eliminate prejudice and help improve women's condition.
Contrairement aux mythes, hier,
contrary to myths, we thought that these were jobs reserved for men. In other places, particularly in Europe, we see the involvement of women in what was thought to be reserved for men. We have had 7 women who have passed through our school to learn. They have shown that they can do just as much as men. In Pointe-Noire, the promoter of this training institute can already appreciate the small but precious steps of the emancipation of women coming from his establishment in the Congo. The woman today takes responsibility. The responsibility to participate in the various trades which were reserved for men. Yesterday it was difficult to see women do certain trades that men do. Yesterday it was a myth that they are trying to shatter. Because yesterday it was hard to see women doing certain jobs that men do. But now, in any case, they are doing these jobs, thanks to their efforts and motivation. Knowledge is power. Vocational training breaks down the myths of professions dedicated specifically to men. Enough to gradually change the situation in a predominantly female country, where people often marry very young and have little chance of learning a trade.
In this second part, attorney Alice Nkom tells us about her training and gives some advice to the young generation of African lawyers. Let's listen to her.
Miss Alice Nkom, you were Cameroon's first female lawyer. How did this come about?
Je suis arrivée là parce que
This came about because I married a man, Mr. Poko Siendumbe, not to say his name, rest his soul, he has since passed away, who had found these human qualities in me. I didn't like injustice. I didn't like that human beings could be made to suffer. I always have, and so he very subtly suggested that I become a lawyer, when in my head I wanted to be a doctor. That's why I chose scientific studies up to my baccalaureate. So it was he who wanted me to translate into a daily professional reality this calling I had for always defending the widow and the orphan, to defend the person who is suffering, to say no to the suffering and injustice that I saw around me. It's him. I owe him that, and today I never stop thanking him for it, because indeed I feel deeply that I am a lawyer. I feel deeply that I am a humanist. I feel deeply that I am a defender of human rights, and I am very comfortable defending minorities, and in particular sexual minorities.
You left to study law in France in the early 1960s. What are your memories of that time?
Excellent memories of a young girl who discovers the world, who discovers Paris and France. But above all, what stood out for me there was that I discovered Africa through the Federation of Black African Students in France. It was called the FENF, where I got to know people from Gabon and everyone, and I also got the meaning of commitment to defending the homeland and Africa. It was a great experience. I studied in Toulouse, and in Toulouse I met a group of Africans with whom I felt completely in security, like a family, and they taught us the mission that we had come to France to complete, to work, to study, to be among the best. And that's what we did.
How was it going back to Cameroon? Did you find it difficult to work in the still predominantly male legal profession? What were your first cases?
Not only masculine, but foreign. There were not a lot of black lawyers, but I approached my legal studies, my career as a lawyer, with great confidence. Because even before this, I had set myself some goals and challenges. And I know how to deal with a challenge. Challenges are overcome by working hard, by having an ethic, such that no one would fault you in your personal or professional behavior. I can tell you that when I began litigating, I was sent to litigate criminal matters in criminal court. You're face to face like a boxer. We didn't have a shirt, we had nothing. It's your face is out there. Well, that's criminal practice.
Votre visage est à découvert. Eh bien, c'est ça la correctionnelle. C'est-à-dire tout ce qui est vol, tout ce qui est...
All that is theft, crime, all that you can imagine. However, with civil law, social law, labor court, you draft, you file.
Vous rédigez, vous déposez.
But I was sent to deal with criminal matters because all the bosses, all the partners of law firms in general, they don't like to waste their time in court. So they sent the interns or the young lawyers to go prove themselves there. And that's how I started. That was the challenge. I spent all my nights studying my files and reviewing the minutes of the proceedings, trying to figure out how I was going to speak. Because I had this challenge, I had to prove myself in a typically male and foreign environment, and it was predominantly foreign.
Which battles do you feel you have won, and which ones do you still want to fight?
Le combat pour ce que je fais.
For what I do, it is an endless battle. I will never finish it. If I can take credit for anything, if I can allow myself to speak in this way in all modesty, it is to have started it and to see that in these times I was the only female lawyer in 1968. Today, there are more than 4,000 lawyers who are members of the bar, and more than half of them are women.
Plus de la moitié est féminin. Ce sont des combats.
These are the battles. These are the wins, the victories, but they are small compared to the goal that I have for myself, which is to obtain the decriminalization of homosexuality in my country of Cameroon. Because all the laws that are there, all of them together, as I told you earlier, advocate for there to never be a law penalizing who someone is. It's as if you were being penalized in a country for being black. You can't do anything about black skin. You can't do anything about your sexual orientation. It's a part of you.
With what you have learnt, what advice would you give today to a young female African lawyer?
Une jeune avocate africaine qui choisit ce métier-là.
A young female African lawyer who chooses this profession, firstly, bravo for having the courage, because we don't choose this profession if we don't have a lot of courage, and African women do, and this courage must lead them to be the best lawyers in the world. What does that mean? There are just a few ethical conditions. They must be flawless in their respective ethics, their code of conduct, and, above all, be close to the interests and trusted to them. Be both the lawyer but also the listener. This is important, to be an expert in the subject matter of the law that will be applied to her client.
Être experte en matière de connaissance du droit qui sera appliqué à son client, se donner à fond pour que le client
to work very hard so that the client is always sure that he or she is not alone.
Et que face à
And that, in the face of adversity, in the face of the harshness of the law, in the face of the severity of a judge, he or she is not alone, and that his or her lawyer will do everything so that the right or the law, which is above all the protector of human rights, it is first the protector before it is the punisher, that she knows that everything has been done to ensure that the protective law triumphs over the judge's decision.
Qu'il emporte sur la décision du juge.
Well, that's it. Initiative Africa is over for today. You can, of course, find Alice Nkom's interview and the replay of our programs on our website, africaonair.com. And feel free to follow us on all our social media channels. Also, feel free to share, like, and comment with the hashtag Initiative Africa. And don't forget, next week, same time, same channel. I'll see you again with a new edition of Business Africa. Have a great week, everyone, and goodbye.